Hey guys, welcome to Intellipaat. At the beginning of World Wide Web, JavaScript was limited to web browsers only. Now, however, JavaScript can be used to build almost anything. You can even build the backend of your application using JavaScript. This is done using Node.js. Node.js is one of the most popular technologies in the field of web development right now. In fact, it is Node.js which forms the backend of many of the popular applications like Netflix, Uber, PayPal, etc. But how do you get started with Node.js? Stay tuned to find out the answer. Before we start, do subscribe to Intellipaat's YouTube channel and don't forget to hit on that bell icon so you never miss out on any of our latest updates. Now let me take you through the agenda for this video. Firstly, we'll be understanding about what Node.js is. Then, we'll be looking at some of the advantages that it has to offer. Thereafter, we'll be looking at some of the core modules used in Node.js. Then, further on, we'll be learning about Node Package Manager or NPM. Thereafter, we'll be looking at how to create our own modules in Node.js. Further, we'll learn more about differences between local and global packages. And finally, we will be having some hands-on experience by learning how to install Node.js, how to create and run Node.js programs, and how to install and use packages written by other developers. After going through this video, we hope you would have a solid foundational knowledge about what Node.js is and how to get started with it. Also guys, if you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. Now let's start the session.
The first question that comes in our mind is, what is Node.js? Node.js, as I've stated previously, is a JavaScript runtime environment. What it means is it allows you to write JavaScript code which can then be used by the backend of your application. That JavaScript code will then be converted into machine code by the runtime environment, that is Node.js, and it'll interact with the backend server. It allows you to program a backend server to respond to requests that it receives. So instead of using any other language like PHP, Ruby, Python or Java, you can use JavaScript to write the backend of your applications as well. This is especially useful for those front-end developers who have a good in-depth understanding of JavaScript and wish to use that to create their own backends. So JavaScript is actually very easy to learn. So even if you don't know the front-end application, how to build front-end applications, how to use JavaScript in depth, you can learn it pretty easily and get started with Node.js. So why would you want to use Node.js? Node.js offers several advantages. Some of these are that it's ease of use. Node.js is very easy to learn simply because it's based on JavaScript, and JavaScript is one of the easiest languages to learn. Many developers do know JavaScript even if they are not from the front-end world of the web development, and if they are, then it's actually very easy to transfer their skills to the backend world using Node.js. Node.js is asynchronous, which basically means that it has the ability to push long-running tasks in the background and keep your application responsive. It's very easy to run long-running tasks in background or on a new thread using Node.js. So long-running tasks such as database interactions, interacting with file systems, accessing a web API that is already on the internet, so on and so forth. So as you can imagine that getting data from a database server could take a lot of time if the database server is congested. So what Node.js allows us to do is to make that call and then push it off to the backend, and it keeps processing the rest of the code written in the Node.js file. When the database sends back a response, based on the response, Node.js will then understand what the response is and perform the actions that you have described on the data that is returned by the database. All of this happens and all of this is taken care of by Node.js, so you don't have to learn the intricacies and understanding of how this happens. All you can do is use the Node.js language to push long-running tasks on the backend and in the background, and that will be run by the Node.js environment. And it also comes in with a built-in package manager. It is called NPM or the Node Package Manager. It allows you to include packages written by other developers in your project. So for instance, if you are working with a database and you don't wish to write the tedious code that is concerned with the database handling, code such as connecting to the database, writing queries, getting results, formatting those results, and then closing the connection, these all can be taken care of by a package written by another developer. Furthermore, what you can do is you can write your own packages and publish them on the npm registry, and people can take use of them. So it's a good way to collaborate with other people and write your own packages and use other packages in your own projects to simplify your workflow.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same, which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. Now let's continue with the session.
So now that we've talked about Node.js, let's take a look at how you can install Node.js on your own system. So I have opened Google Chrome. You can open any browser that you wish, either Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox or any browser that you are comfortable with. Go on Google and search for Node.js. Press enter, and the first thing that you see is the link from nodejs.org or org. Click on that link. As you can see, it opens up and there are two versions for us to download. The website automatically detects my operating system, and the version of the operating system I'm using a 64-bit version. So it offers me two downloads, either the LTS version or the current version. LTS stands for long-term support, as you can see here, and the current flag means that it contains the latest features. Now for most use cases, as it's mentioned here, it is recommended that you use the LTS version. It's stable, it's battle tested, and it works out of the box. The current package will have the Node.js with all the features that are being developed for Node.js. However, these features may be a little flaky and could work or not work depending on how those features are implemented. So if you wish to try out the latest features, you can use the current version. However, if you're wanting to build a stable application using Node.js, most probably using the LTS version is the right way to go. The LTS version will be supported by the Node.js community for a long time. You can look at the schedule for these versions in the long-term support schedule. The link is right below the download links. So we'll be using the LTS version. You can click on the LTS version and then click on save. So as you can see, it'll take some time to download it, and once it's downloaded, you can just click on the package and begin the installation. So as you can see, the download is finished. I will click on the package, it will open it, and the installation wizard comes up. Click on the next button, accept the license term agreement. You could, if you wish, to read the entire agreement. However, it's quite long and it's okay to just accept it right out of the box. After accepting it, you can click on next. You can select the location where you wish to install the Node.js files. The default location is fine, so click next. The default installation is fine unless you wish to make some changes. I would recommend that you do not make any changes and just click next here. As you can see, this will install around 27 megabytes of data on your hard drive. And if you wish to, you could install the C++ sources for compiling Node modules. Now this is a bit of an advanced feature. We won't need it now, but if you think that you would need it, then you can just click on this checkbox and click next. We won't be installing it because it will take some time and it's not really going to be something that we'll be using in this video. So you can leave it off, then you can just click next and you will click install. As you can see, it shows this shield icon on this, which means that it will ask me for my administrative password. The UAC or the user account control kicks in. You can, if you have the administrative password, put in the password and click on yes, and if you don't have the administrative password, just click on yes. So I've put in the password, I click on yes, and the installation begins. It begins by copying the new files, updating the components, and then copying the new files. This will take some time because this is probably the only step that's going to be taking a lot of time. It's going to be copying the file from inside the package to the installation directory that we specified in the previous steps. It was, I think, C program files Node.js. So it's installing. The installation should be fairly quick depending on your operating system and the configuration of your PC. Now that it's installed, you can just click on finish, and to make sure that it's installed correctly and then you can use it, go and open a command prompt and type node-v, node space -v. This dash looks like a minus symbol. Click enter, and the version of Node.js that's installed on our system is version 12.14.0. If you're watching it in sometime future, then what I am recording right now, then you could have a different version. However, don't worry, just make sure that the version matches the version that you downloaded. The ones we have downloaded is the LTS version, which is 12.14.0. which matches exactly with this, which means that we have successfully installed our Node.js on our system and we can begin using it.
Just a quick info guys, if you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same, which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. Now let's continue with the session.
Now that Node.js is installed, let's take a look at what we can do next. And now we will run a simple Node.js script just to get an idea of how you can use Node.js, how you can write scripts and how you can use it in your system. So let's take a look at that. So I have opened a text editor. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code, which is a good text editor to install and use for writing code. You could use any text editor that you wish to. If you want to use Notepad as well, you could use that as well. There are other text editors available out there, such as Notepad++ and several others. So what you want to do is you want to create a new file. So you can press Ctrl N, or you could go to File and New. As you can see, it's opened a new file for me. Right now it's not saved, so I'll save it. I'll save it on desktop and I will name it sample.js. Make sure that you name it whatever you wish to, just .js extension is important. That indicates that it's the Node.js file. So since we're beginning, we'll only look at some very basic things that we can do with Node.js. You could simply just write console.log and inside it write a string message, whatever you wish to. I'm going to be writing hello from sample.js. You could end it with a semicolon and then save it. Now, if you have worked with JavaScript before, you know that console.log would log this message on a console. So if you're using a web browser, it would log it into the browser console. However, this is Node.js and we are not concerned with web browsers. So what it will do, I would open the integrated terminal inside my Visual Studio Code package and it works. I would navigate to the folder. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, don't worry, I will also show you how to do it with regular command prompt. But if you have VS Code, then you could just navigate to the desktop where our file is saved. As you can see, C users, Intellipaat, desktop, and the file name is sample.js. Now, if you remember, we installed Node.js previously. So all we have to do now is type the command node space and the name of the file, which is sample.js, and if I press enter, it says hello from sample.js, which is the code that we wrote here. So as you can see, running a Node.js script is actually very easy. Just write the script, save it in a location, open a command prompt in the same location where the file is saved, and then run the command node space file name. Now if you don't have Visual Studio Code installed, what you can do is just open a command prompt. I have it already opened. Navigate to the folder where you have saved the file. As you can see, it matches C users Intellipaat desktop, which is exactly where I saved the file, and run the same command node space sample.js. Sample.js is the name of the file that I'm using. Press enter, and as you can see, it logs hello from sample.js. So this is how you could create and run a very basic Node.js application. So now that that's done, let's look at what next we have to learn. So now that we have run a Node.js script, let's see what else we can do. So now we'll take a look at node modules and packages. So a module is simply used to encapsulate one or multiple code files, and these code files are working together to accomplish one specific single task. So think of these tasks as data validation, database access, data filtering, request filtering, so on and so forth. Any task that you need to perform, you could wrap all the files that contain the code to do so in a module so that you could export them, reuse them, so on and so forth. These modules or packages, as they are known, could then be published on the NPM registry and other developers could download it and use it, including these packages in their own projects and then working them, and they could even contribute their own code in these packages. So it's a good way to collaborate as well as reuse some functionality that is already built by someone else. So as you can see that these modules allow us to separate our code into smaller parts. This is very important when you're building applications on a large scale. as these applications will have several requirements specific to their domain. So for instance, if you're building a payroll application, you would still need to interact with the database, validate the data, get data from the user, display error messages, and several other tasks. So instead of jumbling all those code files into one single folder, what you can do is you can separate them and then manage them separately, update or make changes into each of them separately, and those changes will probably not make a great deal of impact on the other packages that you have created in your project.
Just a quick info guys, if you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same, which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. Now let's continue with the session.
So simply put, packages allow us to separate our code into smaller modules. You could think of these modules as smaller programs that accomplish one single task that you need to do for your application to work. These modules can also be used by other developers, and you could use modules that are created by other developers. So if you're working in a team environment in Node.js, what you can do is you could create several modules. Several teams could collaborate with you on that, and these modules could then be used by other developers as well who are in your team. So other developers could use the validation package that you have created, and you could use the database package that other developers have created. So it enhances and encourages code reusability as well. Now let's take a look at some of the built-in packages. So when you install Node.js, there are certain packages that come built into the Node.js installation. So you don't have to install these packages. These are some of the most common tasks that you will need to perform when you're creating a Node.js application. So these packages have been built in and created by the Node.js organization. So there are several modules. We're only going to be discussing 5 modules that you will be needing when you're using Node.js. However, there are other modules as well, and if you wish to get a good understanding of what the modules that are available are, you could look at the documentation on Node.js website. So let's discuss these 5 packages one by one. The first package or the module is the path module. So when you're working with an application, if that application is going to be used on multiple operating systems, one of the most important things that you need to do is working with the path. So when you're working with Mac OS or Linux, the path will be one way, and when you're using an application on Windows operating system, the path would be another way. So for instance, in Windows, if you want to separate 2 folders on a path, you use 2 backslashes. While on Linux, what you do is you use 1 front slash. So these differences are taken care of by the path module. When you want to create a folder structure, or when you wish to create a path to a folder, you could just use the path module, and it will take care of all the discrepancies between the operating systems for you. Then there is the FS module. FS is short for file system. Simply put, it allows you to write code that performs input-output operations on files. So these files could be of several types. You could use a configuration file, you could write logs to those files. There are many things you could do with these files. Now, FS module comes with 2 sets of methods. One is synchronous and second is asynchronous. Synchronous methods lead your application to stop executing other tasks until the file that is being read is completely read. So if you are reading a configuration file, it's probably best to use the synchronous methods. And if you're reading some other kind of file into memory, then using asynchronous methods is better. Then there is the HTTP module. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transmission Module. It is a module that is used to create a really small lightweight HTTP server, and other HTTP related tasks could be performed using the HTTP module. So if you wish to create a really small HTTP server that could respond to certain requests with certain responses, you could use the HTTP module. The URL module, URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. It is used to parse URLs and manipulate them. So in case you get a URL from a website, or you wish to deal with a URL on the website, constructing those URLs could be difficult. So you could use the URL package to encode data into URLs and to pass that URL through a request. And then there is the query string package. So query strings are basically what you use to send requests through a URL. So if you have ever seen google.com, when you type in some request to search and press enter, the address on the address bar changes from www.google.com to www.google.com/?q is equals to something. That something is a query string. So let me give you an example. As you can see, you can open google.com, and now if I type in node, press enter, these are the query strings. So as you can see, $source is equals to HP, and these are generated by Google themselves, so you don't have to worry about doing any of these things. So as you can see, query strings are quite useful. However, generating those query strings and then using them is a little difficult. So this is why we use Node.js's query string package. Now let's take a look at creating your own module. So as discussed earlier, Node.js allows you the capability of breaking up large applications into smaller pieces called modules. These pieces can be used separately, and several developers could work on these features or these modules simultaneously. So when you're creating these modules, make sure that these modules are created in separate files, because this is the only way you would be able to create a module, import it, export it, so on and so forth. This allows us to modularize our code. Modularization is, put simply, just a step to keep our code separate, concerns of our code separated from each other. You can create your own modules, and you could use the modules that are created by other developers as well. So in our module, we write code that performs some task. So let's say that you are using a module to create, you are using Node.js to create a module that could work with a MongoDB database, or it could be an SQL database, or any database of your choice. So you could create your own module that would interact with the database a certain way, that would accomplish some task in your application. Now, when you have created the module, you could expose that module to the outside world using the module.export keyword. So if you don't understand what that means, don't worry about it. We will have a demo in which we will understand how these things work. Now, this is to be noted that not everything in your module needs to be exposed to the outside world. So if there's some internal tasks that your module needs to perform, you could keep it internal to your module and only export the things that other developers would need to use, like connecting to the database, getting results from the database, and then closing the connection from the database. So these are the kind of things that you need to understand when you're building a module, and we'll take a look at them in the near future. So after you have created your own module, and you're satisfied with how it works, and you've exported the functionality, the chosen functionality that you wish for the user to use, and hidden the internal functionality, now you need to understand how to import the module. So importing a module basically means importing the tasks or the functionality that you have exported or the module has exported for the outside world to use. So once the module is exported, you could import certain functionalities in this module. In Node.js, this is done using the require keyword. So you basically use the require keyword, pass in the name of the module, and that would be important to and assigned to a variable that you want to use. We'll take a look at that in the near future as well. And as promised, we will take a look at creating, exporting, and importing Node modules. We'll be creating these modules ourselves, and we will keep these very basic so you don't get lost in all the complexity of the application. The point of this demo would be to show you how to create a Node.js module, how to export certain functionality, and how to import that functionality to your applications. So I have opened Visual Studio Code once again. You could open any text editor that you like. Just make sure that you type in the code exactly as I'm typing, and then run it the way I'm running. So firstly, I'll create a new file, and that file would contain all the code that I need for my modules. So I will be creating a math module, math_module.js. Press enter. In this, I will be creating 3 functions. So in JavaScript, the way you create a function by using a keyword called function. So I would create a function. I would call it adder. It will take in 2 numbers, x and y, and I will return x plus y. So the addition of 2 numbers, let's say 1 and 2, would be 3. So these are very simple functions. Another function that I will create is called logger. This will log the messages that I pass into it, to a console or to a file depending on how the requirements are. For our purposes, we'll be logging it to a console. So I could just pass in the result, and here I would use a print line method which we will create in a moment, and I will pass in the result. And finally I would create a function named printline. It will take in a message as a parameter and use console.log and print the message to the console. And let me just fix this. I save it. Now, as you remember, we discussed that we will be using the module.export keyword, and anything we assign to it will be exported by this module and could be imported by the other modules. So since printline is the internal message or an internal function that people don't need to use, I will use the adder and the logger method. This is exported by this module. I will create a new file, name it index.js, and now we will use the require keyword to import things. You would use the const keyword. The things that we want to import are adder and logger, and we set it equal to require require, and we will pass in the name, which is math module. The // indicates that this module is in the same directory as index.js, which is the current file. Now what I would do is I would use the logger method, pass in the result that we will get from the adder method. So now that we have used the adder and logger method, let's try and use it inside our application. So I type in node space, the name of the file that we'll be using is index.js, press enter, and we get 3. Now just to show you that the print line method could not be imported even if you want to, I pass in print line, save it, print line, and I get an error. It says print line is not a function because we have not exported it, so no one from the outside world could use the print line method. And this is how this works. Now if I wish to change the internal implementation, I would just have to change it inside my module. This code is not concerned about how logger works, how adder works, and this is how you can separate your code and then build these functionalities separately by yourself. So for instance, if a new requirement comes which says that with the message you have to print result equals message, you can save it, and I would rerun, and I get result equals 3. So as you can see, the new requirement did not need me to make change to my application, and I could remove this here because it's not being used, and our application is done. So this is how you could use index.js as you could use modules, and you can export certain functionality and import certain functionality that you need. So now that we are done with the demo of creating, exporting and importing a node module, we'll take a look at what's next in the agenda. So next we'll learn about NPM. NPM stands for Node Package Manager.
Just a quick info guys, if you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. Now let's continue with the session.
So what is NPM? NPM is the built-in package manager. It ships with Node.js. So with the default installation file, you get Node.js's built-in package manager named NPM for free. You don't have to create or download any additional media to install NPM. Now, NPM allows developers to include packages written by other developers. So for instance, let's say that your team wishes to create a web application, and it wishes to connect to a MySQL database, or even to a database like a database that is on the cloud, databases such as Azure Tables or AWS Aurora or DynamoDB or any sort of database that your team agrees on. Now, for using those databases, the companies that have created those databases publish drivers or packages that could be used by your team to connect to those databases. All you would have to do is go on NPM or to the documentation of those databases. Search for how you could connect those databases to your Node.js application. It will show you a package. Go to npm, download that package, include it in your project, and then use that package in your system. So this isn't just limited to companies or vendors. You could create your own packages as we have discussed previously. So packages such as data validation, packages for database connection, packages for some features that you want in development that could be installed locally or globally. We'll look at all of that in the near future slides. But right now what you need to understand is you could install packages that are created by other developers to simplify your own work and to avoid repeating the tasks and keep your focus on solving the problem that you have. And these packages are managed by the developers of those packages, and you could manage the version that you wish to install of a package. So for instance, let's say that you found a package that works with MongoDB and you wish to use MongoDB. Now you install that package. That package is being used by you and your team, and now a new version of that package comes along that fixes some of the problems that were there in the previous version. Maybe it's a performance improvement, maybe it's a change in the API that makes it more secure, or maybe it's something else. So what you can do is you can specify that you wish to use the newer version or the version that's currently available, or you wish to use the latest version. That way, whenever you run npm install or install the new packages in your applications, it will always install the newest, latest version available. And if you don't want that, if you're familiar with the APIs or the functions of a previously known version of the package, you can install that and specify that that is the package that my project would use. So you could do it either way. Now, why would you want to use Node Package Manager or NPM? NPM is a central repository which allows developers to share packages. So as we have discussed earlier, these packages take care of some really common tasks. These tasks are performed by all the web applications, or mostly all the web applications. So if you're creating a web application, you are most certainly creating applications that are going to be interacting to a database, that are going to be validating data that it gets from the external sources like users or any other file system. And you are going to be using those packages to make those tasks very easy to perform. Now, these packages are written by other developers, so you could look at those packages. You could even look at the source code that these packages are written in, and you can download it, experiment with it, and install it or use it in your own packages or your own libraries, your own applications, so on and so forth. NPM also makes your project more portable, which means you can easily share your code with other developers and they can run your project by downloading the dependencies that you have specified from NPM. So as we discussed in previous versions, you can specify the version of the package that you wish to install. To give you an example, let's say that you're working on a project and you wish to install certain version of those packages. Let's say you wish to install the version 3 for the MongoDB driver that is used to connect to the MongoDB database and use to interact with that database using Node.js. So you install those packages and all of that information is stored in a file in your project. Now a new developer comes in your team and you wish to get that project set up on his personal computer or laptop or on whichever device he wishes to code, and you want to make sure that every person in the team is using the same version, because the later version might introduce some bugs and some people might have that bug and you might not. So to do that, NPM makes it very easy. It keeps a track of all the files and all the versions of the packages that you have downloaded and installed, and you could share that file with the other developers. All they would have to do is copy that file in a folder, run npm install, and all the packages will be synced in all the people's projects. So all the developers would be working on the same project with the same dependencies and the same version, and there would be no conflict, and it would be easy to port project from one person's laptop or one developer's laptop or PC to another developer's machine. So let's take a look at dependencies. So what are dependencies? A dependency is simply a Node.js package that your application depends on. So for instance, if your Node.js application is using a validation package that validates data from the users, your validation package comes in your dependencies. These dependencies can have their own dependencies. So suppose you are creating your own validation package that uses some other package that is created by some other developer, and that package has its own dependencies and so on and so forth. So instead of you having to manually download it from GitHub or any other source that you wish to, Node.js takes care of this complexity for you. All you have to do is just install these packages that you wish to install, and all the dependencies or the dependencies of the dependencies or so on will be resolved by npm itself. npm is really fast in doing that as well, so you won't have to it won't take a lot of bandwidth and a lot of time for you to install all of these packages or download all the packages in your project. So npm allows you to make sure that your project is working well, and the dependencies, or also allows you to keep your dependencies in sync with other developers. So let's look at the types of dependencies. So there are two types of dependencies that we come across when we are dealing with a Node.js package and an npm project. There are normal dependencies, and then there are dev dependencies, which stand for development dependencies. So what is the difference between these two, and what are these two things? A normal dependency basically means that it is a dependency that your project needs at runtime. Without this package, your project cannot be deployed, it can't work, it needs to be installed on any system that is going to be hosting this application, any server that's hosting this application. So it needs to be, these packages need to be installed on the system that your project is running on. So packages such as database interaction or data validation, these are the kind of things that your application would have to do. So for instance, if you have a package for data validation and you are using that package in your code, and now you don't have it installed on the deployment, so you have deployed your application on a server, that server is then being used by multiple users, and they interact with the server, and your project crashes because it does not have the dependency to validate the data that your code is using. So these are normal dependencies. Without these dependencies, your application cannot run. Then comes dev dependencies. Dev is short for development dependencies. These are usually referred to as dev dependencies for brevity's sake. So dev dependencies are basically just dependencies that you use when you're developing a project. These development dependencies are not deployed with your code. So even if these dependencies are not installed on the production end of your application, if they're not installed on the production server on which your application is running, your application will work just fine. So dependencies such as dev dependencies, you can think of these dependencies as a package that restarts the server anytime your code is modified. So for instance, if you're writing a backend application, you are writing a server, and whenever you make changes to the code that is in the server, that code needs to take effect, that code needs to be restarted. That server needs to be restarted so that it can take care of load all the changes made by you. Now, there are packages that do it automatically for you. They will watch the files that you are making changes to. When you save these files, your server will be automatically reloaded and all the changes will be inside your server, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, when you are running the code in production environment, these packages are not going to be required because your server will not need to be restarted again and again when you make changes to your code. So these dependencies are usually left out when you are using the Node.js repositories or dev dependencies. Now let's take a look at local and global packages. So using npm, you can install packages either locally or globally. So what does that mean? Well, local packages are installed using the simple npm install and the package name command, and then global packages are installed using npm install, and we pass in the -g flag and then the package name to instruct npm that we wish this package to be available globally, that is to be installed on this system globally, which any project can use. So a local project is only available in your project and no other project could use them. So if you install a database, a package that interacts with the database, you can install a specific version for your package, for your project. So it could be you could think of it as the MongoDB driver. You install it on Node.js application. The version number is 3, and now the new version comes along and you wish to use that on a new project. You could install that version in the new project pretty easily without any hassle. Just specify the version and then install it, and you won't have any issues with the version numbers as these packages are installed locally. So package in one project will not have any effect on the package of the other project. Right on the flip side, a global package is available globally. So you can install it in using your Node.js command line tool, npm-g, npm install-g, and then the package name. And this package can now be used globally by any project inside your system. So try to install packages that your projects depend on locally as much as possible so that you don't have version conflicts. So for instance, creating a new project and you wish to use the newer version of the package, that would create certain problems if that package is installed globally, because then you would have to make a choice between using the newer version or the older version for all the projects inside your PC. On the other hand, if you're installing things locally, you could just install it any version that you wish to of any package on your project, and it won't have any effect on any other project on your system. And make sure that you install global packages that you know are going to be shared across projects. So if every project on your package is going to be using the same version of the same package, then you can install it globally. However, installing it locally using the local installation command in your npm is probably the preferable way to go. So now that we have discussed what local packages and global packages are, let's look at a demo where we will find the package on npm, we will install it locally, and we'll see how that works. So I have opened Visual Studio Code once again, and using the integrated terminal, we'll start with our local module demo. So firstly, open the terminal. And again, like I've said, if you don't have Visual Studio Code and you don't have an internal or integrated terminal, simply open the command prompt, navigate to the folder where you have installed the or where you'll be creating the files for this project or for this demo. I have installed it inside Node local module. Press enter, clear the screen, and now whatever command I type in here, you can type it here as well, and they will work exactly the same way. So firstly, we'll have to initialize a node project. So open the command prompt in the folder where you wish to create your Node.js project. Type npm init space -y. Now space -y would create a default package or a default project for your application. Now if I don't pass in -y, you can see what happens. Press enter and it will ask me a bunch of questions. So the package name, I will name it local module. The version, description if you wish to save some description for your project, the entry point or the starting or the main file from which your project starts, the test command, we won't be using any testing in this application, the git repository, if you're using GitHub you could type it here, and the keywords and authors and the license. Now if everything is okay, just type yes and press enter and it works fine. So if you look at the folder structure, I have a package.json file. It contains everything that prompt asked me to. Now, if I don't want to answer all of these questions, I could simply, instead of going through all of these commands, simply type -y. This would answer every question that was asked in the previous step with the default answers. I press yes, take some time, and this is the file which is exactly what we had previously. Now if I open the package.json file, it's exactly the same. This is the file that will be used by npm to make sure that the packages are installed and what packages our applications are using. Now let's move on to see how you could use npm to install a local or a package locally. So the first thing you need to do is you need to open a web browser of your choice. I am going to be using Google Chrome. You could use Firefox, Opera, any browser of your choice. Open the browser, go to Google and search npm. Press enter. The first link that you get, which is the npm.com, open that link, and here you can search all the packages available for you to download and use in your projects. I'm going to be using a package named bs-logger. You could use any package that you wish to. This is just for demonstration purposes. I press enter. This is bs-logger. click on it. It'll take some time. This is what it looks like, and here's a little bit of documentation for you. If you wish to know how to use BS Logger, you could use it like this, and this is how you could install the BS Logger package. As you can see, npm install -- save bs - logger. You could leave this -- save option if you don't wish to include it. It's done by default. Or you could use the yarn package manager that is created by Facebook. So if you find npm is a little slower for your taste, you could use the yarn package manager as well. But for our purposes, npm install would work just fine. So simply copy the command that you wish to install it, or if you want to use the default command, just click here. As you can see, you don't have to type the npm space install completely. You could just type npm space I, and it will take a look at it and understand that it's using the install command. Now that that's done, go to your terminal, clear the screen, paste the command and press enter. Make sure that the terminal is open in the same folder where your project structure is created, or where the package.json file is created. Then you click enter. Now it's installing, and you can see it installed really quickly because the package is quite small. And as you can see, we have created a new folder, or the npm package manager has created a new folder for us named node_modules. If you look inside it, it uses BS Logger and fast JSON stable stringify. This is a package that is used by BS Logger to do its tasks. You don't have to worry about knowing every single dependency of your project. npm will resolve those dependencies for you, and as you can see, it has its own package.json, and if you look inside it, you could see it uses inside the dependencies fast JSON stable stringify. So, and we look at to our package.json, and as you can see, this is dependencies are listed here. Now if I were to just give this project without the node modules folder to a person in our team, he could just run npm install, press enter, and the npm package manager will look at the dependencies. In our case, it's BS Logger, anything above the version of 0.2.6, and that packages or those dependencies will be installed locally in your system or in your project folder. So you could easily port your project from one computer to another computer. You don't have to copy these node module folders with you, because these could get really large. If you're working on a large project, you are going to be using a lot of packages. These could get like 260 MBs with thousands of or millions of files inside them. So instead of copying these folders from one location to another, just copy the folder structure, leave the node modules folder, and then in the new PC, just copy those files of your project and run the npm install command, and it will install all the packages that your project uses. Now that that is done, let's take a look at how to use these packages inside our application. Just create a new file. I will call it index.js. It's not necessary to call it that. You could call it anything that you wish to. I am simply going to be calling it index.js because it's basically a convention for your entry script to be called index.js, or sometimes people call it app.js. So I will use the logger method inside the BS Logger. And as you can see, I get auto completion. That means that package is installed properly. And I will just type in logger sample log message. You save it, close the package.json, open the terminal, type in node space index.js, press enter, and as you can see, our log messages are working perfectly. So in case you're wondering how I figured out that logger is the method that I need to import, you could simply look at the documentation. It shows you how to use it. As you can see here, const logger require BS Logger and just logger.foo. These are other methods that you could use and understand how to use them. These documentations are extremely helpful for understanding how to use these packages and how to configure these packages to the way you want to. So if you want to configure this logger package to your needs, you could read the documentation. As you can see, there are certain configuration parameters that you could pass and use it, create a child logger, so on and so forth. You could install other packages as well. Just search for them on the internet, look at the blog posts if you wish to understand what other packages are available if you don't know them by name, or you could look at the packages on documentation site. So for instance, let's say that you want to use MongoDB with Node. type in MongoDB Node.js, enter. The first link that you get is MongoDB Node.js driver. Click on it, and which version do you wish to use? If you wish to use the latest documentation, click here and it will show you how to get started, how to install it. Click on the installation guide. It will give you the command. You will copy it, paste it, and then you can look at the quick starts, the tutorials to get started and understand how to use it. We're not going to be taking a look at the connecting to MongoDB in this tutorial, but you could take a look at these and figure out how to use them. The point of this tutorial was to make you understand that there are several packages. This package is made specifically by the MongoDB team. So the team that created the MongoDB database has written these packages for you to be used. So now that that's done, let's take a look at what's next on the agenda. So the next thing we'll take a look at is how to install a module globally and how to use it. Globally installing a module, if you recall, is the task of installing a module in your system that every project on your system could then use quite easily. So let's take a look at how to do that in our demos. So for this demo, we'll create a new project folder and we will create a new project inside that folder. So if you remember from the previous demo, all you have to do is just type in the command npm init --y, press enter, wait for the command to finish, and as you can see, this is the package.json file that was written as it's stated in the command. Now if you want to see if this command was actually written, just open the package.json file and this is what it looks like. So it's exactly the same as the previous one, just the name of the package has changed because we have created a new folder and inside that folder we are using the command. Make sure that you are not running the command in the same folder again and again because there is already a package.json file available in that and you might get some conflicting output. Now that that is done, the first thing we need to do is we need to install a package locally. So just type in the command npm install chai. This is a testing library or a testing assertion library. Don't worry if you don't understand what testing means and how you write testing code. Just type in the command and follow along and it'll get more clear as time goes by. So now that we have typed in the command and it has installed the package, the version that got installed was 4.2.0, and to take a look if it was actually installed, just take a look at the package.json file. As you can see that this was installed, and in the node modules folder we have all of these functions. Now that these packages are installed, and as you can see, chai has several dependencies of its own. Now that that's installed, just you could do is now we will install a package globally, install-g Mocha. So Mocha is a test runner. It will take a look at all the files inside a folder, take a look at the folders or the files that contain testing code that uses chai, and then run that. So you don't have to specify each file that contains the testing code. Again, don't worry if you don't understand all of this, it's completely fine. Just follow along to see how globally installed packages work. And I press enter. And it's installing it globally because of the -g flag that was passed in. And Mocha is a little bigger than chai, so it's going to take some time. As you can see, it installed 92 packages because the package had its own dependencies and those dependencies had their own dependencies, and this worked completely fine. Now that this is installed, as you can see that this was installed globally in the app data folder, in the roaming folder, npm mocha folder. So now if I type mocha-v and I press enter, you get the error no test found. That's fine. What it means is that we have a mocha command available for us. Now all we have to do is create a new file and run these commands. I am again going to call it index.js. I will use the require keyword, require, and I will require the chai package, chai.assert, and we will assert that 1 and 1 are equal. Or what you can do is you could use the chai.assert.equal method. Inside it I type in 1 and 1. As you know that 1 is equal to 1, so it is going to return True. Now all I have to do is run the mocha command, press enter, and oh, no files found in test. That is because we need to move this file inside a folder named test, because mocha looks for a folder named test. So just copy it, and now if I run mocha, it should work fine. And as you can see that it works completely fine. It says 0 passing, but it doesn't give us a failure. Let's say assert equals 0. Type in mocha and you get an error. So we expected 1 to equal 0 and we got 1, but the expected value was 0. So we got an error there. So we know our tests are passing. It's working completely fine. Let's run it again and it works fine. Now to show you that it's installed globally and not locally, if I come out of the package or the folder in which this was installed and I type in mocha-version, press enter, you can see that command is still working. It's giving us the version 6.2.2, which means that it's installed globally. Now any package that I want to install this, or on any package or on any project that I wish to use mocha, I could just type in the mocha command and it will work as expected. So as you can see, I don't have to install the mocha package again and again in each folder. Now if you want to install mocha locally and keep the versions different, then you could do that as well. It's completely your choice. So now that that's done,
just a quick info guys, if you want to become a certified professional in Node.js, Intellipaat is offering a complete course in the same, which covers all the major concepts. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below. We hope this video was helpful to you. And if you have any further queries, let us know in the comment section below. We'll be more than happy to help you. So thank you so much for watching this video. See you again.